and welcome again to the Executive Room podcast, where we delve deep into the minds of remarkable executives who have shaped the business world with their ideas and actions. I'm your host, Kimberly Afonso, CEO and founder of the KA Consulting Group, and today it's an honor to have Jamie Faye with us. Jamie is a really special guest today. She is a relationship coach specializing in guiding visionary leaders, women, men, and couples. With over 15 years of experience in personal development, she helps individuals overcome trauma and conditioning to achieve clarity and happier, more loving relationships. Jamie has an holistic approach that integrates multiple teachings and practices. Through her unique blend of spiritual wisdom and practical strategies, she empowers visionary leaders to unlock their full potential and embrace the richness of their human experience. So let's get started. Thank you so much, Jamie, for being here today. You know, it's great to have you on. I know your work is really, really special, and I'm really happy to share it with our executive CEO community. So I'd love to start with a little bit more about your background. You have 15 years of experience. You've guided really a lot of visionary leaders. I know you work with men, women, couples. Can you tell us more about the origins of your coaching and what inspired you to pursue this path?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I think that it's both a calling and both my life experience, right? So I started in the music business as an artist, manager, and producer. And I first got the coaching bug, I call it the life coaching bug, when I realized that an artist that I was supporting was on the path to a project that was not in alignment for him. It was not actually his deepest desire. He was working in some areas of obligation and guilt and things like this that, no good things come from that. So I got the coaching bug there, and then it just expanded into life coaching and very quickly into relationship coaching when I realized that most of my clients at the beginning, who were mostly women, I was helping them with their relationships, sisters, marriages, children, boyfriends, wanting to find their love. And I didn't have the skills to work with two people at the same time. So I was really successful helping clients who were 20 years older than me. Some of my first clients were, 20 something years older than me, helping them reignite their marriages, love in their marriage. But I didn't have the skills to bring in the husband. And I think humility, I'm glad that I was aware of what I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know, but I did know that I didn't know how to work with two people at the same time. So that's when I actually went back to coaching school to study coaching again and to study relationship coaching. And then along the way, I studied everything that was exciting for me, every modality that felt to me like it helped me or was helping me, whether it was yoga, because yoga was a huge support for me, or breathwork therapy, or getting into more of the ancient lineages. I mean, those both come from ancient lineages, but ancient lineages from China and India, Taoism and Tantra, and everything that would help people heal expedited, in the quickest, most efficient, effective way. More recently, EFT tapping, anything that's going to help my clients bridge from the cognitive to the body, right? The talking to the actual healing on the body level.
And yeah, as you said, Jamie, I've done EFT tapping with you, and it's been life-changing. It was something I never knew about before you introduced it to me. So I know you mentioned some of the practices that you work with people on, but what are some of the other things you bring into working with your clients, and why and how do you blend all of these things together?
I think how is just the being who I am, right? I can't help it, right? You've known me for quite a long time, right? We met in like an entrepreneurial Facebook group, networking, and through the time that you've known me, which is probably 5, 6 years, right? I just keep evolving. So I think that's what's really special about people like us, is that we never stop learning and we never stop striving to be, it's so cliche, but the best versions of ourselves, because I believe we understand that we're here to evolve, right? So it depends on who I'm working with, but when it comes to working with women, if we're talking about women CEOs, we'll start with them who want to rise into the queen archetype, or they like the sound of that, but they're not sure what that means. You know, what does it mean to be a queen? Is I really help women who are founders, empire builders, I like to call them, these like maverick type alchemists who are just building incredible things, and impact and affect a lot of people, is I help these women who are super successful, super ambitious, stay in their feminine or come back to their feminine, which means that, you know, the funny thing I notice about women that I work with is they're usually on the outside extremely feminine. No one would mistake them for anything but a woman, right? Like a beautiful woman. And then what I discover, and what we discover through the work, or I might know very early on, is that part of that femininity has been suppressed. Part of it has been turned off, because in order to exist and succeed, quote unquote, in this manly world, this masculine world, a lot of that, it felt like to the woman, had to be turned off. You know, that's part of our conditioning. So what I'm helping women do is come back into their feminine for two purposes. One, in business, because actually being more in our feminine in business helps us create bigger results with less work, because we create differently than men. So the men listening here, it's not against you. We're different. We need more sleep. We need to rest and play more, even though you all need to rest and play too, right? We need different things. So helping my female clients relax, right? Which is so hard to do. It's so hard to do. It's so hard to slow down. We have so many goals. We want to create big things. We never want to stop. There's more and more and more beautiful things that we want to do. But we can do that while still accessing the body. So you asked me about practices. So the reason I gave that little intro was it's important to know the difference between a feminine practice and a masculine practice. So a masculine practice would actually be something like running, cycling, sometimes also like Pilates, yoga, which I'm a huge fan of, many of those things. I'm not anti any of those things. I'm not much of a runner, but yoga or Pilates or bar classes or things. I love these things and they're good for us, but they need to be in combination and not prioritized over feminine practices. And feminine practices would be things that are a little bit less structured or not structured at all. So the difference is that masculinity, the masculine energy, the masculine side of the brain that allows us to show up on time and record podcasts and run teams and all this, is masculine. So beautiful, an important part of us. But when we deny the feminine, and the feminine practices would be things that would be more circular motions, dancing, using the pelvis, unlocking stagnant energy in the body, which is usually around the hips. That's the part that gets most stuck, and then causes stagnation, that causes issues with fertility, issues with healthy cycles, issues with feeling connected to our pleasure or connected to wanting to be intimate with ourselves or with our partners. And that is huge. The biggest thing that women especially don't realize, or men who are with women like us who build big things, is that we really need that. And we can't be healthy and we can't be fully satisfied without our access to that part of ourselves. So the feminine practices are circular, free, dense. You've come to some events of mine. So, right, like I teach different kinds of movement, working with archetypes. I teach breast massage, which is an ancient Taoist practice that helps us open up the heart, right? And bring that heart energy into the rest of our body. So all kinds of self-massage, all kinds of movement that allow us as women and allow the women who are thought leaders, these executive CEO type women, to remember who we really are. And that can be that can be hard. It can be hard to remember who we really, really are below the true identification, the true persona. It's not fake, but the trueness of being a CEO, of being a leader, of being a queen. I could go on, but you know.
Great. It's really great, Jamie. Thank you for sharing that. Those are great practices. I think everyone listening can really take something from it. I really love how you started by separating the feminine and the masculine ones. You know, that's something I learned with you that I personally didn't know before. And I think it's really good to listen for all of, our listeners thinking about which side maybe they want to, their feminine or masculine energy before doing a practice. They can think about which side they want to cultivate more. And that's, a great place for them to start with some of the things you were saying.
Great.
So you work with many couples, and I know you've said, Jamie, that the best time to work with couples is when things are going well, but can be even better. Can you tell us a little bit about why you believe that, and why is it important for couples to engage in work proactively? And also, can you talk a little bit more about your work? It's definitely not like other things I've personally seen, so it'd be great if you could share a little bit more about it.
Sure, of course. So I say that couples coming to relationship coaching, the type of coaching that I do, and probably many other types also, is beneficial when things are going well, is because, first of all, there are always things that are unsaid. So when things are going really well, that means that there might just be little things that we can patch up before they form big holes. And when they're like anything, a foundation that has little cracks, right? When there's pressure, when there's a earthquake, and that when there's something that happens in life, death, sickness, more babies, loss of work or stress at, whatever the work is, or moving countries or whatever it is, the foundations of having structure, here's where we go between like the feminine and masculine, the structure of knowing how to talk about the things that even aren't so bad, right? So whenever I teach, for example, couples dialogue or things like that, teaching couples how to communicate, we always start with little things that, tiny little things that might bother, right? That you might not even say, because you might say to yourself, it's not that important. You're right. It's not that important. It's not worth a fight, right? But learning how to talk openly and to really learn how to be heard, how to truly listen really well, which is a skill that almost no one has, to actually be able to repeat back what someone says, to learn to mirror, and then to learn to empathize with someone and truly create a healthy separation. I think that's a big thing that we need in relationships, and a lot of couples need to learn. We have union, we have sacred union, we have becoming one that comes in all parts of relationship, not just intimacy, but also day to day running a life together, right? We have to be on the same page. We have to, be a team, right? In order for it to work. And we also need to learn a healthy separation of what is my partner's and what is mine is mine. So a big part of doing this work when you're doing well is learning that. So let's say something doesn't go well really badly, God forbid, in your partner's life, you know how to stay centered. You know how to stay conscious. So there's so much healing that's available when things are going well on a higher level of becoming more and more conscious of why you chose this person, why this person is your person, right? Even if this person is your person for 5 years or 10 years or your whole life, there's so much to learn through deepening the connection, deepening the trust, deepening the communication skills that allow for two things. One, prevention of the foundation, or it's called like rupture. We call it like big rupture, which will prevent you then from having to come back to relationship coaching or really good relationship coaching when something really bad happens, like infidelity or loss of a child or loss of job or whatever, or just stress, or one of you is evolving differently than the other, right? You're changing and your person isn't changing. They're right where they are, right? Can you stay together? Um, so you used a word I love, Kimberly, which is proactive. Um, Proactive. So you asked me what kind of things I do. So I think I mentioned, but one, what I really love to do with couples is to teach them easy things that they can do daily, even for just 2 minutes, and weekly and in session, out of session, that allow them to reconnect with one another and remember why they're there. Because it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to take someone for granted. We hate being taken for granted, but it's so easy to take someone else for granted. It's the worst feeling, but it's not hard to do. So if we're proactively making sure that every day we're connecting, even for 2 minutes, even if we're at a distance, right? Even if we're traveling the world for work or for pleasure and we're not together, the ability to come on a FaceTime or Zoom or whatever and connect for a couple of minutes and breathe together and remember who you are and who you are in that relationship and why you're there, honestly, things like infidelity aren't going to happen if that's happening. That's just the truth, because those things happen because people feel unseen, right? They need to get something they feel they're not getting. And then they act impulsively, the opposite of proactive, reactive, right? To get instant gratification. Can it be healed? Absolutely, if both people are willing to come back to trust. But it would be better to prevent it, I think, right? It can be a huge wake-up call. Some big rupture of whatever kind can wake you up. But you don't need something like that to happen in order for your relationship to be better than it ever was. And the difference is when people come to me in kind of a crisis, it's that if the trust is so broken, which is usually what a crisis feels like, one person really doesn't trust the other, or they both don't trust each other for different reasons. It could be for anything, for any reason. It just takes a lot longer. And the what's the word? Like the doubt is bigger. The doubt is bigger because it's like, well, I feel so distant from you. I feel so disconnected from you. How could I possibly feel that way again?
That makes a lot of sense, and thank you for sharing that, Jamie. As a lot of CEOs, entrepreneurs, founders listen to this podcast, do you think that, in regards to them when they're in relationships, is there anything you'd like to share specifically with those high achievers, business people?
Absolutely. If you aren't already aware from listening to this, I'll tell you what people where you are now, in a year from now, or 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, tell me. I wish I had invested more in my relationship, right? I wish I had invested more in myself. Because the truth is, nothing is more important, whether it's your health, right? A lot of this work is very health related. It's about staying vital, staying fertile, which is just for your health. It doesn't mean about procreating or having babies, men and women, but it's about what is more important than the relationships in your life. There literally is nothing after your own health, right? After taking care of yourself, the belonging, the connection, the intimacy, which is just comes from being vulnerable, the ability to be vulnerable with someone and feel safe to share, right? Whether it's anything from what you do in your work, Kimberly, and help people be thought leaders and write their story and share their stories about how each of us is so unique, and each person who your company supports, their story is so inspiring, right? But and the relationship with your person, or the relationship that you are dreaming about, whether it's with the person you're with, or you were with in the past, or you haven't had that yet because you've been so focused on your empire, right? This incredible, or empires, these things you've been building for all these years. I know you want to share it with someone. I know that there is more to life than those things, even though I know that we all identify very strongly with our work, and there's nothing wrong with that. And especially for the women, we need to have the other part. That other part feeds our work. And for the men, I hear, men who are really expansive and in this empire building, they look back and they see, how amazing their wife was, their partner, was in supporting them through that. So just remember, there really isn't anything more important. And every bit of time that you give on a daily basis, and if you don't know what to do, that's okay. Like, I can help you. It's not, it's like, I can help you to figure out what those things are, and to weekly have check-in, and to have someone facilitate, and have someone support you in reconnecting on all the levels, as as private to as superficial as it goes. There really isn't anything more important.
And I couldn't agree more with that, Jamie. I think you touched on a really important point. Anything I ever invested personally into my health or well-being or relationships, never had one regret about it. And that's such a great insight of, people just regretting they haven't done it sooner, because without your closest relationships, like you said, what really is more important? So thank you for sharing that with our audience. I'm sure a lot of people will resonate, and it's a very, very important message. And a lot of your work, like you said, is about vulnerability. And this podcast, we focus a lot on vocal leadership, which can be related in many ways to vulnerability. So why do you think it's so important to be authentic and vocal? And right now, especially for, leaders in a world where doing so can be challenging.
Yeah. Well, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one, right? I mean, isn't that like a great marketing marketing little slogan? So I think that if you're telling your truth, your authentic truth, you're going to speak to the people who are going to, a variety of things, be most inspired by your work, right? So if you're sugarcoating, or you know covering up, or hiding is a really good way. Like, that's something I'm really aware of. Something the past 6 months I've been really looking at. Am I hiding anything? What am I hiding from anyone? From people close to me, not so much, but in a bigger sense, I really try to show up. But what am I not sharing, and why? Right? So the shame that we can have around things, which needs to be alchemized, which is the killer of all good things, shame, right? And the killer of all good energy in the body too, right? Shame makes us sick. Shame and guilt make us sick. So anything that you can liberate, vocalize, and get and allow out of your body, which might take some preparation, it might take some EFT tapping, it might take some somatic release, it might take that, because it is a big thing for you. But that is what's going to penetrate. I mean, Kimberly, you must know, and I'd love to hear. I'm not here to interview you, but I would love to hear in this podcast episode for you to share, when people say the thing that was scariest for them to say. Like, have there been times where your clients have been like, yeah, I don't want to share that part of the story, and you're like, I really think you should, because this is a really important, pivotal part of your story. And it's going to, this is the word I'm talking, penetrate. And what that does is it penetrates through the noise, and then that magnetizes everything. It might magnetize your new best friend, your best clients, the people who are going to be so inspired and create an empire that they never would have without your story. You inspired them because of your vulnerability.
Completely. Happens all the time. So, it's a really great insight. And what I found is usually after people share something that maybe they were on the fence about sharing, they feel really liberated. And maybe if they were nervous about it, most of the time there's not negative, I don't know if I would like to use necessarily that word, but usually they get more positive feedback than they even think because people resonate, they know more about them, they're, attracting either the business or clients that they want. So it's really, really important. I think that's a great point you're sharing, Jamie, about being vocal. And talking about being vocal, and also, we have a lot of female CEO listeners. Is there anything you'd like to share specifically? You shared already like a few great practices, but anything else you'd like to share with female CEOs? What do you think is really important for them to know at where we are right now in this world?
Yeah, I think that the thing that we are mostly missing is pleasure and play, right? So we get really serious because we're so serious about our work, right? It's so important, and it is. Like I say we because I understand, right? And the ability to slow down, the ability to have fun, the ability to laugh, right, comes from being able to relax, right? Like a nervous system that's regulated, and that's used so much, but it's really important. So, um, not to make you feel bad, because it's a thing that comes up a lot, a theme in my work a lot, about like, well, it's really difficult for me to relax, and I'm guilty because it's hard for me to relax, and it's hard for me to switch from working to being with my partner, to just having a lovely dinner, or to hanging out with him, or to enjoying him, like, right, enjoying intimacy, enjoying a hug even, right? That the biggest thing I can say to you is that can be learned. You have learned hundreds of skills over your incredible life as a CEO and founder. You are just constantly acquiring skills. You have innate talents, right? You have innate magnetism, and you can learn something that we all lost because we are part of this society and conditioned. So you can relearn how to slow down. You can relearn how to relax. And part of it will be like, regarding that example of switching between work and play, work and just being with your person, or work and allowing a new person to come in your life, or magnetizing a king, magnetizing an everlasting love, is giving yourself that time. It's just a little bit more cushioning, a little bit more, you know what? I'm going to turn everything off. I'm going to take 10 minutes and I'm going to do a practice I learned. Maybe it's shaking, right? Maybe it's chakra breathing. Maybe it's some feminine qigong. Maybe it's singing. Maybe it's just having a silly dance party, right? Jumping up and down, looking in the mirror, saying nice things to yourself, right? There are so many wacky, quote unquote, they're wacky to some people, like that, those are all very normal things for me, right? Like wacky things that get you out of being so serious. And that's, again, something I can really personally relate to. And I use that word because it's something that I know about myself. I know that I'm super serious around people that I don't feel safe with. And that doesn't go for clients. Like, me very fairly well, Kimberly, we've spent time together. I'm totally lighthearted, etc. But when I meet new people, I'm lighthearted too. But when I meet someone who then has a predatorial vibe, I've learned this about myself, or a centered vibe, I get very serious. I'm not smiling, I'm not laughing, but I learned that's okay. That person's not for me. So because I have that discernment, I look, that's not a safe person for me. Because I know that most of the time I'm very lighthearted and I want to have fun. And my work can be very serious, right? I go deep into people's trauma, but that doesn't mean that I don't bring a lightheartedness to it, that I don't bring so much acceptance and love to it. I don't bring judgment, right? Because we all have deep things. We all have things from our childhood and adolescence. We all have things from the society that we grew up in that we would benefit from reconditioning, from releasing. Yes.
So many great things shared there, Jamie. So we'll definitely share where people can follow you and connect with you at the end of the episode and in the notes. I, definitely recommend some of the events you have, and also your personal work. It's really, as you said, it's really deep, but I really like the things you brought up because a lot of the things that you teach are things that people can do in just 5 minutes. So for busy, CEOs or busy people, it's not going to, it doesn't have to be, 2 hours if they don't want it to be. It can be 3 minutes, 5 minutes resetting, and that makes a huge, huge difference. So we'll make sure to share where people can learn more about everything you said. And how do you, recommend that to the people listening to integrate, some more of these things? I really agree with a lot of what you were saying about work and play and seriousness. How can someone who, maybe has a busy job, very busy schedule, what steps do you recommend for people to really start to get into this work, or to maybe reach some of their goals of even being in touch more with their playful side that they may have lost over the years?
Yeah, I think that it's one of the things that's best experienced. So, like you said, I think that if you are listening to this and any of this resonates on any level, and you just want to share, wow, you really, Jamie, you touched on something, or you have a question, I encourage you to email me directly. My email is here, jamie@jamiefaycoaching.com. Email me directly. And I do a good amount of events. So come to an event, be facilitated, be led. Allow me to facilitate for you and lead you so you can relax, right? That's another big part of these, these high powered, both, but especially women. Sometimes you need to be led so that you can relax and fall into that playful place. So come and learn. And from there, then you can apply to your life. Then you can see if you'd like to go further into this work or deeper or what have you. But then you can experience it and say, oh, take one um, take one practice from 5 practices we did, and try it out for a week for 3 minutes, like you said. So I have a bunch of things coming up. We don't know when the episode will come out, and that's all great. But depending on when, I have the Pleasure Playground, which is a 5-day pleasure like taster of learning these nervous system regulation and different pleasure and play techniques. That's why it's called Pleasure Playground. We have some like a group program, Becoming the Queen. We have one-to-one work. There are all kinds of opportunities to taste it and to give yourself the opportunity. Because I'd say that if you're really stuck in the serious, it'd be very hard to just get yourself up by yourself.
Yes. I think it's great, as you said, to be led. That's the best way to really, really learn about a lot of these practices. And before we wrap up, can you share with everyone a little bit about how do you personally integrate all of your practices into your own daily life? Do you have like a structure? Does it depend on how you're feeling? Whatever you share, I'm sure can inspire everyone as you are the expert here.
Absolutely. And please don't take what Kimberly said, which is just because Jamie spends 2 hours doesn't mean you have to spend 2 hours. Um, so yeah, so every morning I do face massage, and I do breast massage, and I do qigong, like infinity eights, which is like really warming up my pelvis. Those are things I do every morning, no matter what, including bleeding days, right? Including days where our practices would be different because we're respecting our cycles, right? Then almost every day I do shaking. And some kind of dance. So usually I try to do so shaking is like Qigong shaking medicine, which is really helpful for the vagus nerve, regulating the vagus nerve. And I do that like 10 to today. I did a lot, probably like 30 minutes, but that's not necessary. Just what is. I dance almost very frequently. Almost every day I dance by myself, but I also dance in a group, with other women. Nature, super important. And I do some kind of yoga, like vinyasa sequence, because I need those movements in my body. I used to be a very strict yogini and practice the Kundalini primary series every day. I don't think that's healthy for most women, especially into our 30s. That's not doesn't work for most of us in our body types, but I do incorporate that because it's important. Um, But yeah, moving the body, moving the hips, lubricating the joints, clearing up stagnation. I usually also do about 15 minutes of Kundalini yoga because I find that's really great for the brain. And I do the morning series, the wake up series, Kundalini wake up series, and then a few warm ups after that. So, yes, I do a lot, but that's me. I am a person who really benefits from having a long morning practice. Um, and it helps me show up in a way that I want to show up and helps me stay clear and in my body as well, which is super important for the work that I do. Right? If I'm teaching, helping women and men to stay in the body, then I have to be embodied.
Beautiful. A beautiful, beautiful practice. So thank you so much, Jamie. Before we wrap up, if people want to work with you or find out more about your events, we'll share, of course, the links, but where can they find you? I know you mentioned your email is jamie@jamiefaycoaching.com. Where else can they find you?
You can check out my website, which is written right there in the email. You can also follow me on Instagram if you like. Those are the places that I'm most active, and definitely connect with me on LinkedIn for sure. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn and learn about what you do and follow you and support the empire that you're building. I think that's a great place for us to connect. But don't be shy. Please send me an email and say that you heard this episode and I just want to hear how it was and encourage you to try things out and to send you some loving support.
Thank you so much, Jamie. A lot
Thank you.
of gold in this episode, so thank you for sharing everything you did. And until next time.
Thanks so much.